right before we jump into this video, if you haven't subscribed right here on YouTube, please go ahead, click on the subscribe button right now on the screen. It's going to pop it up so you can subscribe to the channel to get the latest videos when they come live. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. Welcome to another Adorama Picks Rapid Fire Critique. This time, I've got photos from RFC Husky OGN. That's right, Husky OGN. So let's jump through this critique and see what we have. First things first, we've got the Kölner Dome in the background. This is Germany. This is Cologne because I've been there, so I know what it looks like. Nikon D800, 85mm 1.8. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can maybe read the screen. 1/8000th. Holy shit. 1/8. F1.8, 200 ISO. Jesus, at 1/8000th of a second. Well, first off, it's not that great of a photo. It says, welcome to California. I don't know what that means in Germany, but so 1.8, there's really, I get it. You know, you want the background to blow out and you want all of that to happen. But at 1.8, there's kind of, even if you went to 2.2 or 2.5, the background still would be extremely bokeh-licious, as Kai Wang would say. There would be a ton of bokeh still in the background. So I don't feel this image. It's like, so we've got Snoopy here standing against a wall. We've got welcome to something or other. We got the Kölner Dome with that bridge up there. And really, it's not that interesting of a photo unless it's part of a major photo story. Plus, I don't like the processing. It lacks the contrast. It's just very blah. And that kind of happens when you shoot at 1/8000th of a second at 1.8. You're not really, well, I think you could process it much better. We'll just say that. What the heck is that? Nikon D800, Tokina 28, or 16 to 28. What's that say? 2.8. 1 f8, 30th of 30 seconds. This is cool. So I like this shot. I like the longer exposure. Wow, look at the moon. I didn't even notice the moon was there. Now I just saw it. So it's a long exposure, and the clouds are there. Now, I'm wondering if it's a composite, because if it was a 30-second exposure, I would venture to say that the clouds would move further and quicker and be more blurry and clouderific. So I don't notice that, but I don't dislike this image. I like the feel of the color. I like this yellow glow. I like the way that the sky is looking. So as an image, I think it works well, and I think it's one of the strong ones here. Obviously, I've only seen one other one, so it's the strongest one so far. Moving forward, f8, 1/320th of a second, 16 millimeters. I mean, so it's okay. We got lens flare coming in right here. That's the difference between, I guess, using a Tokina and using, say, the Nikon 14 to 24, that you could literally look right at the sun and the nano coating will cut back on. The sky is overprocessed. It's too sharp. It's too much done to it. The countryside isn't this bright. There's too much fill light added in post-production. To me, it needs to be more contrasty, because when you add that fill light, it doesn't look realistic. So this doesn't look realistic, and the sky doesn't look realistic, and overall, doing what they did to the sky totally killed it, because look how grainy it is, and at ISO 100, you shouldn't see this much noise and grain. Over-sharpened, over-processed, not a very good. Okay, so I'm just going to have to go with not very interesting on this one. Sure, it's broken glass everywhere. Something like we really don't care. Okay, but it's not interesting what's going on in the reflection. There's a person, there's a thing, and a thing. It's just not interesting. I got to yawn. Excuse me. Like if you yawned at the same time that I yawned, because I made you yawn. Anyway, not an interesting photo. I got to move on. So if I'm going to look at this and say it's the Kölner Dome again, this is the Nikon D90, so we're going back a couple years with this person. f2.8, 40 millimeters, 1/2500th of a second. Aperture priority, ISO 200, blah, 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 2.8. It doesn't really need to be done at 2.8 again, because the sky is going to blow out no matter what. But here is what I like: the processing. I like the boomification of, it doesn't look like the Kölner Dome to me. I could be wrong. But what I don't like about this image is, one, the lines aren't straight. Look at how off this line is going up here. You're not straight with the building, and there's a reason why symmetry works so well with images like of buildings is because it just looks interesting. It's appeasing or appealing to look at. In this case, this definitely is not. It's off kilter. It's off axis. It needs to be straight. Plus, the building isn't symmetrical unto itself. This is here and this is here, but this is here, but it's not here. So maybe pick a different part of the building to photograph, because this just doesn't work with it not being straight and the building not being symmetrical. Another long exposure. So I kind of like this. One thing you got to get rid of, and this caught my eye, was the dust right here. This is from the D90. You could simply get rid of that really easy, and nobody would ever notice that or that. Of course, this is dust or oil, but whatever, people. Don't get up in arms when you see, like, these spots at f22. You're shooting at f22. It's going to show up. Just spot it out later, and you'll be fine. So as a part of a photo story with a larger building in another image, this would probably be better, but it's pretty boring that it's just a rock formation up in the sky, up in the air. I like what the clouds are doing. I like the black and white conversion, but it's not very interesting to me. Now keep that in mind. The image has to be interesting, or it should, no definitives. I would like to see the images be interesting that you put up, because just because certain things are done, like the exposure's right and the clouds look cool and all glowy McGlowerson and stuff and all flaky McFlakerson, doesn't mean that it's a great image. There's a lot that goes into it other than getting the exposure right. All right, people on ice, it looks like. We're back to the D90. I keep saying that. Tokina 16. 11 to 16, 2.8, f8, 200 ISO, and the processing again is what throws me off. Aperture priority. What were you going for? Were you going for a silhouette? Because if you're going for a silhouette, it's not silhouetted enough. I like the colors, I like the tones, but again, the sky is overdone. A little too much with the vibrance and saturation, which brings out the fakeness and the grain and the noise. There shouldn't be noise even at ISO 200 with an N90. With a D90, Jared, a D90. So I don't mind it, but I want to see more of the action of what's going on. So that's just what's throwing me off again, is the processing. It's overprocessed. All right, so we've got this going on. Now we're with the D800. It's a boring scene shot at f10. We've got the noise showing up right here. 16 to 28, 2.8. We've got some vignetting around the edges. That's probably because of the processing. But the image is not interesting. There is nothing of interest going on in this image, in my opinion. We've got the sun right here blowing up, but it just looks, doesn't it look fake to you? I mean, look at the noise and the grain here that shouldn't be there from the extra processing that's going on. I think the moral of the story so far in this set is the processing is just off. It's too much. It's too heavy-handed, which is causing this noise and grain to show up that shouldn't be there at ISO 100. It just shouldn't be there. But in post-processing, you're bringing out this noise because of the way you're processing it, and that doesn't work. But also, there's nothing interesting about this image. If there was a deer and the deer was doing something, then yes, that could be interesting. But it's just not an interesting image, so we got to move on. Back in, we got more locks of love hanging here. Now, this processing is better. It's muted. It's pulled back. Now we're at 1/8,000th of a second, again, with an 8518 with a D800 at ISO 200. You can drop that to an ISO of 100 to cut down on the shutter speed to, say, 1/4000th of a second, right? Because if it's 1/8000th at 200 ISO and you slow down the ISO by lowering it by one stop, then that 1/8000th of a second would become 1/4000th, which is one stop down. So we move each thing one stop to compensate, because you're not letting in more light. You're making the sensor not as sensitive at 100, which means you have to drop the shutter speed to to compensate for the change of things. I like this image. I like that this isn't in the middle, but the problem is at 1.8 is that really I don't know if anything is truly sharp other than this right here. Now, maybe if you were focusing on one of the locks and one of what they said, then yes, a very selective focus would be better. I like that this is out. I like that this is out. but I'm missing what the main focus is. You may need to get closer to whatever it is you want to focus on, because then it just becomes a snapshot of lox, and not the smoked variety with some bagels and schmear that a lot of the Jewish brethren like to eat in the morning. Some bagels and schmear. So that's what I'm saying. Your focus has to come in on something. If you want to isolate it at 1.8, we got to have something to look at. So I got to move on to the next one. .org. All right. Is this Germany again? Is this the train station? So I would have liked this image if this guy wasn't here looking all overprocessed again. It's like the fill light slider is being used and it looks HDR. Now, it's not, again, nothing wrong with doing HDR. It just doesn't seem to work. That the exposure on this guy doesn't seem right. It seems like he's out of place, that he's too glowy. He's too, I should say it, glowy McGlowerson. This isn't realistic, and this isn't realistic because, look, she's standing in the shade. Now, if she was standing in the sun, in the shadow where the light is there, and he was in this light, it just looks like they went in and they cut him out and they made him more bright, and it just isn't interesting. Go black and white. You got the train in it. I think it would become more interesting without over-processing it, and that is all of the images. So there are a couple, like, this is close. I like it. That's not bad. So this is one of the top 3 or 4 that is in this set. It was more of a difficult set to critique because I really needed to rip through these images, and I think you guys will agree that these are just a lot of, it seems like a lot of snapshots. Your exposures are fine. You're pretty close. There's some little tweaks that can be done, but I think you need to work harder at a couple of things. Now, work harder at finding an interesting composition and image. Work harder at not over-processing your images, causing them to get noise and grain because either your exposures were all the way off or you just over-processed the image. So that is an honest critique, and that's kind of what it's all about when I do this. There are some positives here. I did point them out, but I would like to see less snapshots and more thought-out processes. If you're going to do something like this wall, then maybe here's a photo story idea. You put a lock on here, because the locks are all lined up right here on this bridge, and you've got the Kölner Dome in the background. So if I was to do a photo shoot or a photo story of Cologne, Germany, I would put a lock here based off of this image. Maybe I'd line up a couple of locks. No. This is what I would do. Because, yes, this is what I would do. I would get one lock, and it would say one lock, let's get... Anyway, I would line up the lock here with an inscription on it. I would take an isolated photo of it with the Kölner Dome in the background and the bridge where I'm going to put it in the background. Then I would do a shot like this, but at the Kölner Dome and at the bridge. And then there's more. There's got to be more. I would go up to the Kölner Dome and I'd do a full shot of the Kölner Dome. And then, I know I've extended this out, I would do a lock shot like this, but I'd isolate just the lock itself that I put there. So I would focus right on whatever was engraved in that lock. That's what I would do, and you have a start of a photo story there. You've got the footbridge. You have people on bikes. You've got the rail station. You've got interesting detail shots of what goes on at the rail station. You have architecture shots of the rail station. You have architecture shots of the bridge and of the Kölner Dome. You've got 5, 6, 7, 8 different ideas that I think you can do better with. So my challenge to you is to go do it again if you're in Germany. If you're not, do it somewhere else. And then send me a link to the new files. So that is a rapid-fire critique. That's my Adorama Picks rapid-fire critique for this time. And that is it. Jared, Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya. So if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, hit this subscribe button right below me on the screen because it's going to allow you to subscribe so you can get the latest videos when they go up so you can see them as soon as they do happen and be the first to comment and see them. And that is what I have. See you guys and enjoy.